probably the lowest point physically and emotionally for myself, just because you were just so drained all the time. I mean, you're sleeping in a pickup, you're never at home. You're trying to raise kids and raise a family. And, I've got a really good wife and great kids, thank the Lord. But it's a brutal way to live, and the freaking equipment is what takes my time. If the stuff was just productive and was reliable, man, my life would change drastically. Mm-hmm. And I spent 10 years in it, and nothing changed in 10 years. And that was probably the hardest reality to hit, to say, what's the next 10 look like?
There is a podcast in Iowa, Farm4Profit was named by they. Fate stirred up a banker near, then quick came an auctioneer. Making profit was their first goal, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Soon may the farmers come to bring us guests and beer and fun. One day when the recording's done, we'll take our mics and go. These formats shook us to our core. With Farm4Fun, you will not snore. The banker set all mics to on, and the mullet of podcast was born. Soon may the farmers come to bring us guests and beer and fun. One day when the recording's done, we'll take our mics and go. Before we knew, conversations grew. Growing corn even said F you. So won't you join Tenor, Dave, Corey, and crew? Please like, share, review. Soon may the farmers come to bring us guests and beer and fun. One day when the recording's done, we'll take our mics and go.
Happy Thanksgiving, listeners of the Farm4Profit podcast. This is Tanner Winterhoff.
This is Corey Hillebo, and we have so much to be thankful for.
I would say so. And the number one item on that list is you, the listener.
Oh, I thought you meant me.
Oh, well, that's number two. That's okay. A close second.
Okay.
Yes,
okay. Yeah.
Dave slides into a third just because he's not sitting here right now.
Yep.
But yes, I would say number one is the listeners.
Very much so. Listeners, and then we had a bountiful harvest. Maybe you didn't quite have the harvest you wanted. Maybe you did. But listen, you're still here. You got your friends, you got your family.
Crap, we got to thank all of our guests, too.
Oh, they're awesome.
We are just thankful for a lot of things.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we are very blessed.
Yeah.
From top to bottom, the experiences that we've gotten to have with the podcast, the listeners' relationships that we've got to build have all been really great. And this is Thanksgiving episode is going to be a little bit longer, so that way if you're with your in-laws and you really don't like them, pop your AirPods in.
Put it on like half speed.
Kick back. Yeah. We're going to kill 2 hours of your Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Yep. So it's pretty cool conversation that we did not think was going to go the direction it did, but we're thankful for it.
Absolutely. Very thankful. If you guys have any other ideas, send us an email, farm4profitllc@gmail.com, not ... Or send us a text message, 515-207-9640.
Yep. Today's listener review is brought to you by Sukup. Guys, we have gotten to know Sukup in and out, from the manufacturing to the sales side. We've traveled with them. I'm trying to think of a different angle to spin this here. I'm thinking of, when I think of leadership, right, I think of the Sukup leadership team. I mean, those guys are out at Chamber of Commerce meetings, at charity events. They could easily sit back, make their awesome bins and parts, and rake in the same amount of money or more. But yet they choose to give back to the community.
We just saw a picture of Steve on a mission trip.
Yep.
Yeah. And I would say, too, the thankfulness side of a Thanksgiving episode is they're so thankful for their staff that they improve working conditions. They've got the proper equipment in place. They have an on-site clinic. Mm-hmm. They're definitely reinvesting into their community that they're a part of. And it's exciting to see them also reinvest into agriculture.
Yep. When I think of someone I want to do business with, that's who I want to do business with.
Well, it sounds like this listener review from Zombie Beast 1976 off of TikTok said, love your podcast, listen to you guys at work. Really love the Farm4Fun with different beers that you try. Well, we haven't had a lot of different beers in a while, but I think this episode we're going to change it up. We'll still have our Busch Light handy, but we're going to throw an extra tasting in there for you.
Yep. So, as always, don't forget, you can also text or call, leave us voicemail, 515-207-9640. And we can't forget Jace at Legacy Farm legacy farmer, right? He's helped over 300 farms get try to figure out your legacy, try to figure out your next move, try to make sure that this farm that you're in right now is still there for generations to come.
Yep, legacyfarmer.org. You can go there to apply for your farm family's legacy and make sure that you secure that for generations to come. Get your one-on-one consulting and a powerful community to work with. Legacyfarmer.org. But let's jump into our Thanksgiving guest for today. Corey, let's fire off an introduction.
Let's go.
Hold on.
Don't ask me to hold on right in the middle of a beer crack. How am I supposed to prolong that?
You did a great job. We get that bush light.
It was a bush. All right. I'm feeling you. Here we go. On today's Farm for Fun show, we head back to the South, a place where everyone says that everything is bigger. And I am starting to believe that this saying is true because this man has one of the biggest and most unique hay setups that I have ever seen. He can be found on TikTok with almost 20,000 followers. Please welcome Mr. Hay4Days, a.k.a. TJ.
All right.
What is up, TJ?
Everything is bigger in Texas.
How you doing?
I'm good. Appreciate you guys having me on.
So I gave a very, very small synopsis. Give us a little background about yourself.
So I grew up in a small town in southeast Kansas. That's kind of where it all started. And I was born and raised in a small town that was actually at one time the hay capital of the world. And been in the hay business all of my life. I helped my dad. Really, I started raking hay by myself because we had a hired man that didn't show up, and I told my dad I could drive it. And I was 5 years old, and I'm currently 40. So I've been 35 years behind the steering wheel of a tractor of some sort in the hay business for 35 years. So
dang. So how?
Your dad listened to you when you were 5?
Well, he was desperate.
Desperate, yeah. Needed help. Well, that reminds me, our buddy Lucas had his 5-year-old in his skid loader picking up bales over the weekend. Had that on Snapchat, and I'm like, dang, I don't know that I would trust my 6-year-old doing anything like that. But guess you got to have some faith.
Well, and we live in a different world out here than I grew up in. You know, we're a fully custom-based business now, so you're always on somebody else's property. High dollar sprinklers, you know, there's just a lot of liability and a risk. And I've got 6 kids, and they all love to come with me and love to help, love to move equipment. But, you know, the size of the equipment that we're running is not like what I grew up on. So it's not comparing apples to apples anymore.
Yep.
Our story started in that small town in southeast Kansas, and I met my wife back there a couple of towns over, got married, and moved to Liberal, Kansas. Actually just kind of took a job, left the family farm, and took a job out there still in the custom hay business. And that was really kind of my intro to a big area, big production, totally different than what we were used to back home. And just through connections and relationships, then we ventured a little farther south and lit in this area around the Sunray, Dumas, Texas area. And we've been here for 11, almost 12 years. So that's kind of how we ended up here, but mainly just kind of following the job in the hay business. And I don't know at this point in time if it's it's been good for us, but it's been a challenge. I'm here to tell you, it's a region unlike any other, and it's feast or famine a lot of times. So.
Yeah. So where's that at in Texas for our listeners? What's the best way to describe that?
Northern Panhandle. If you could go clear to the top, I'm 60 miles straight south. And, you know, Texas, everybody thinks, Texas is warm weather. Not where we're from. It's pretty volatile. It tries to burn you out in the summertime and freeze you out in the wintertime, and wind blows you from point A to point B 95% of the time. So it's a really beautiful area in its own way, but it is a brutal spot to be in, to be honest. It's pretty relentless most of the time, but we've enjoyed it. It's been good for us. So
Great. So the hay that you're producing, is that going specifically to cattle, or is it like specialty, dairy or anything else, or all the above?
No, so it's all of our production goes to dairies and feed yards, 100% feeding purposes, very little bedding. Most of it is all feed. There probably really ought to be a better word for our area other than hay, because it's not hay. We don't grow. We grow quite a bit of alfalfa. We custom bale a lot for some dairies, but really the alfalfa in this area gets trucked in more so than it does baled. There's just too much corn and cotton. The grain crops are too hard to compete against, and it's expensive to pump water. So sometimes alfalfa doesn't make a lot of sense. We really don't get into forage products as far as feed in the farm fields until you hit light water. When they start running out of irrigation water, they can't grow a full corn crop. They gotta rotate crops a lot. Then they start in with forages that are going to be silaged, or a lot of dry forages that are planted because crops failed. That kind of stuff. But it's not. Man, I grew up in hay country, southeast Kansas. Limestone grass, blue stem grass. Fescues, just beautiful baling, beautiful fields. That is not this area. So that's why I say we really, there probably ought to be a different word for what we're doing out here other than hay, because it's really not hay. It's just, as we say, it's filler to make a turd. And that's basically all it is.
Is that what you would?
I have never heard.
Is that what you would call it then, or is there a word that you would call it rather than hay?
We just say roughage. We produce a lot of roughage, and that's about the most pleasant way to put it, I suppose. So
Filler to make a turd.
Yeah.
That might be the intro to the
That's
show.
everything I eat every day. It's just filler to make a turd.
It's just your roughage.
Yeah.
Brought you some roughage
yeah.
for the podcast tonight. Okay, so you drew our attention. So we found you on TikTok. I don't even know if you're on other social media platforms or not, but there's one day that I was scrolling through and I was like, the hell? That's a baler hooked up to a big A Terrigator. And I clicked on your user and your profile and went through a couple more, and I'm like, holy crap, that guy is standing in front of a bale that is taller than he is. So let's first start off with these Terrigators. Yep. Why are we baling using Terrigators? They're not even rogators. These are old three-wheelers. Three-wheelers.
Yeah. I'd say the easiest thing to answer that question is the icing on the cake and the straw that broke the camel's back was a $260,000 John Deere repair bill for 9 tractors. And we've ran every color. The only ones that we really haven't ran are Fence, and I haven't ran a Fent because we just struggle with that dealership. But we've ran the other side of that brand, Massey and Challenger. Just had a tremendous amount of trouble with it. Case was pretty good. Case actually overall production was probably the best for us. But we got into this rollover of equipment that most of us in high production ag thinks that that's what we have to do, and a lot of it's true. I'm not saying it's not. But that works until you got to get out of it. That works until it doesn't work, and it's a killer, and we ran the cases for a long time, had a really high production, but it was really, really hard. I mean, we were trading balers every year. You're trading tractors every year. You have to have a bill count for a tonnage at the end of the year, every year, regardless if it's profitable or not. Like you kind of put your back against the wall with a whole bunch of payments when it comes to custom. And that's probably one thing that I should clarify. Our business is different, not different from any other, but it's different being a custom operator versus a man that's growing the crop, growing the product. It's a different world. When you're growing the crop, whether it's row crop or forage, it doesn't matter. But when you're putting the input cost in it, everything you do is a cost of operation. So your equipment's a cost of operation. You just have to budget whatever's in the middle. It's going to cost you this much and you're going to get this much. And you just have to budget that in the middle. When you get in the custom deal, 100% of your profit comes from that machinery. And in today's era of machinery, it is not very profitable. I mean, there is, don't get me wrong. We wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't, but it's not the same scenario as a guy buying higher dollar equipment to put a crop in and harvest a corn crop, or, raising an alfalfa crop for his own dairy cattle. It's just not the same ball game.
Is that mostly due to the costs that have gone up to purchase new or used, or the parts that it takes, or labor?
So the cost of the equipment, of course, is a big factor. But as inflation goes up, you're getting more for a used piece of equipment. So, your cost of operation for that piece of equipment, it is going up. It doesn't really go up as much as inflation is driving the price of the new purchase up. However, when you're getting large percentage increases every year in equipment, that spread moves rapidly. Mm-hmm. But my biggest gripe and hang up is we're not gaining anything. We're not gaining anything for a baler today that's costing me $250,000 versus the very first one that I bought in 2009 for $90,000. We've gained a little, but we've not gained that much. And I mean, we're running to the TikTok that you referred to has got a big HD New Holland. And I mean, I'm having a lot of phone calls with New Holland in our dealership. They're not a $250,000 baler. And that's where we're getting really hung up on this stuff is we're paying a high dollar input to buy it. And it just does not survive in our world, in our conditions at all. And we've done it for years, and I've had meetings with Massey. I've had multiple roundtable meetings, and all I can tell you is in 12 years, it ain't changed one bit. I mean, they're more worried about putting stuff in the monitors to where, hey, I've got, I can have a scroll of 25 producers in the monitor, but you can't even fix a stupid chamber from plugging up, and you guys have been building stuff for 40 years. It's like, where are you guys at, And they're just charging so much for it, and we're not getting a productive return. And I'll also explain it in this way. If you're row cropping, you can pretty much fit any size of implement for your farm. If you want a 48 row planter, if you want a 6-row planter, I mean, you can pretty much size what you're doing accordingly. If you so choose, you could buy 10 6-row planters and have 10 employees. But in the hay world, we're not that blessed with options. We are, but you're blessed with a lot of options as a smaller size of operation. And you get in the top side of it, you take a guy that's putting 20 to 45,000 bales a year on a baler, that's not the guy they're visiting with at the end of the field to build a machine for. They're talking to the guys that are 5,000 to 7,000 bales, and it's in alfalfa. And it's a whole different ballgame. So there's really nobody. I would say it is the truth. There's nobody in this commercial side of the business in these conditions in that industry that has taken an eye to it. And it's because it's a niche market. We're not a big area. Like the area is big. They're going to sell 100 balers to the guy number 3 and 4. Where they're going to sell maybe 10 repetitively out here to a couple of guys. But, they tell me that all the time. But if you look at the sales for Massey square balers, the High Plains area is probably one of the largest consumers outside of the Pacific Northwest. And the High Plains area is a very large corn stalk baling area. But hey, I mean, if we're all being real and understanding it, if you're selling that many machines, why do you want to change it? They're out there for a profit, which I get. Like, hey, y'all want to make a profit, but I mean, holy cow, they love us. You just wear them out and wear them out and wear them out, and you come back for a new one every time. And that's actually the trend that I figured out. And when we were running all them case tractors, we were trading balers, and I mean, we were just rolling for all we were worth. And probably it's our second highest production year, was probably the lowest point physically and emotionally for myself, just because you were just so drained all the time. I mean, you're sleeping in a pickup, you're never at home. You're trying to raise kids and raise a family. And, I've got a really good wife and great kids, thank the Lord. But it's a brutal way to live, and the freaking equipment is what takes my time. If the stuff was just productive and was reliable, man, my life would change drastically. Mm-hmm. And I spent 10 years in it, and nothing changed in 10 years. And that was probably the hardest reality to hit, to say, what's the next 10 look like? So the first 10, I was partnered with a partner, and I did all the labor work, as far as just the hands on deck in the field, boots on the ground. He was absentee. He was a really good guy. We got along super good. He was in oil and gas. So, of course, that's where the money come from to do what we were doing. And his wife got bad health, and he was 70-some years old. And he said, hey, man, I'm out. And it was bad. We were in the bottom. We were in the valley of the industry and the markets and the demand at that time. And he just said, man, I'm out. 10 years, and we are still busting our tail. It wasn't getting any better. Right. Well, that was the demise of the CASE program. And that, we'll just throw the numbers if people want to know the real, I can back up all of our thought process through the dollars and cents. We've got proof of what we've done. We got proof of why we did it and what has driven us in that direction. And, when Case IH washes your hands of $750,000 of deficits in brand new tractors because they won't rewrite a lease, that's all it took, just to rewrite a lease. And we had honored everything we had walked into, but we had told them for 2 years, we were on the upside of the cycle. We're going on the downside of the cycle. We don't need 13 tractors, we need to be reducing our number because the number of production is going down, which is another reason why the custom business is super difficult, because it's a high point and there's a low point. It's coming, it's in every market. It's just not custom, but when you own all the equipment on your farm, different scenario. When you're leading stuff due to the number of production, it's a different scenario. And, it's just a lot of money to overcome. And I will tell guys, you'll make a lot and you get yourself into one of them situations and you got to buy yourself back out of it. You worked a lot for nothing. And I think there's just a lot of people that they want to admit it or not. We see the highlight reels on TikTok. But there's a lot of people out there working for nothing. And it's just not ag right now is not a sexy industry to be in. Looks good from the highway, but it ain't fun,
The Terrigator then. So is the reason for venturing down that route because they're easier to work on, parts are easier, or why? How is the Terrigator side a solution?
So we lost a pile of money getting out of Case IH. Challenger, they just had a lot of issues with their tractors, lost a lot of production because they broke down. Then I jumped off. I've never been a deer guy, but I just looked around out here in this area, and man, all these big farmers, it's all green, and got, good salesmen, good relationships with some people. And I said, well, let's just do this. I did not buy brand new, so we bought just at warranty, all 2,500 hour tractors, 7 Rs, which was a mistake, 8 Rs. Turned out okay, but still a lot of money on them. Put 3 IVT transmissions in them, just right back to back, bang, 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 all 5,000 hour tractors. I just don't think that's acceptable. What did you buy when you were perfect? Did you buy a transmission? I thought I'm on a 10,000 hour tractor. So did I just buy half of it and then the rest I had to pay in a repair bill? Or how's this thing structured? And then they come back and say through all of our meetings and trying to figure this stuff out, well, you should have bought a 5,000 hour, 5-year warranty. Well, maybe I should have, but that doesn't mean that works for my business. It doesn't mean that fits my financial debt schedule. It doesn't mean, even though it's a should have or looking back on it, that means nothing financially, So I just said, the difference, but I told them, I said, the biggest difference between my operation and your business is our business models don't match. So, you want to sell me new equipment every few years and I want to make money. I want the stuff paid for. I tell guys all the time, especially the young generation, grandparents paid for this ground and they paid for it out of paid for equipment. They didn't have millions of dollars tied up in equipment to pay for that piece of property. They had equipment and they had debt. Don't get me wrong, but I think our predecessors, our older generation, probably have got a leg up on us. We can produce a lot. We can outproduce them hands down. But look at what it's costing us.
Yeah.
Look, I just don't see the profitability in the direction we've went. And I think a lot of these dealership and manufacturers have steered the ship in their favor and not necessarily ours. It steered the ship financially, like from production standpoint, but I don't think it steered the ship in our favor from a financial standpoint, and I know that's a big, to peel off, but I mean, I hate to be a pessimist, but I like to say I'm just more of a realist. And when you really just look at the facts of the matter, how many guys are just extremely happy with their current situation? How many guys at the end of the year just jump up and down out of joy and excitement for their financial position? And I think you find that a whole lot of them aren't really that happy in the spot they're in, and they owe a lot of money, and we owe a ton of money for equipment these days, and we pay a ton in repair bills. So back to the Tarrigator, I sat down. I mean, I spent hours at nights figuring out what the next 10 years look like. And I could continue to buy a 5-year John Deere lease, case lease, however I wanted to do it. I can trade balers every year. I just looked at the cost. I looked at the income. And no matter how I did it, I was right back in the same position with a higher debt schedule in the next 10 years. And I said, to me, that's not progress. I don't think owing more money and having shinier equipment and working harder to pay for it is the answer. So I hate the emission stuff as far as that DEF. And I mean, it's nothing, in my opinion, it's a hoax. Do we care about the environment? Yeah, you bet. But I guarantee you, I put off more pollution for 5 or 6 tractor fires than I ever did out the exhaust pipe, and it's all DEF related. It's DEF and emissions related stuff. My highest repair bills are service calls nonstop. Got to reset the PCM or the ECM for DEF. Like it blows a fuse because the pump's going out and I can't put a fuse in it. I actually got to call them, bring the laptop and reset it. Well, there's a 90-mile service call. Not to mention the tractor's just sitting there.
Yep.
So I just said, man, we're just to a point where I just didn't feel like we were going in the right direction. And, you start talking about deleting tractors and, we were going to delete everything we had just because I was tired of messing with it. Well, that's $45,000, So it's just, you just constantly throw money at the problem. And you're buying the problem when it's brand new and you're paying for the problem while you're using it. And you got to pay for the problem to get rid of it. And I just didn't like it.
I hadn't thought about it that way. That you pay for it all the way from the beginning.
Well, that's what makes it so expensive.
Right.
I mean, that's what stepped tractors up to the next level was, we got to have all this emission shit. But all by the way, that's what 90% of your service calls are going to be from now on. Even under warranty, it's timed down.
Warranty don't cover the service call, and it's not. I mean, downtime is expensive, but I always tell guys I paid $3.5 million in 7 years in depreciation. I never lost a $3.5 million job, no matter how old of equipment I ever ran. Never did.
Yep.
But I lost that money. We had to make that money back in depreciation because we had to pay the difference. So I just looked at that $3.5 million figure and I said, hey, man, what can I do with some ideas stirring in my mind? Like, what if I'm going to spend that money? What can I spend it on that has a long-term impact? What can I spend it on that it doesn't dissipate at the end of 10 years or at the end of the year? What can I invest this $3.5 million in, even if it's a depreciation schedule that I have in the end? Like, you got to keep something tangible and useful.
Right.
You just can't keep doing what we're doing.
Right.
So we were running a really high dollar Stinger truck, and it was the same way, kind of the same thing. It's a good truck, had a lot of problems, had a fire right off the bat. all due to emissions. There was $35,000 on an insurance claim, and it just never stopped. So sitting on vacation Christmas time a couple of years ago, I'm just scrolling through Big Iron, and here I find this Terragator. When I was in high school, and my favorite rig was an old Terragator, 3-wheel Terragator. I mean, that thing, the big old tires on it, loaded down, rode smooth. They were pretty powerful. They're just a robust machine. Like you could just beat the tar out of it all day long on a sprayer, and it just took it. It was built for purpose. And I looked at that thing and I thought, there's got to be a way I can make a bale stacker out of this Terragator, because we're bouncing across tracks, we're all irrigated, half-mile sprinklers, you got 16 pivot tracks, and you're stacking hay in and out. You're crossing 32 tracks to get in and out of the field. And I mean, they don't cover them. We do sometimes, or if you can get them to, but it's rough. And I mean, a John Deere hood, all that plastic underneath of there where it's all molded together, don't last very long, when you're beating a tractor out there. And I said, if I want tractors to last me 5 to 10 years, if you want to get them 10,000 hours, running a bale wagon on a tractor is probably the hardest job there is. And I'll be honest, man, I don't want it in 10 years. I don't hardly want it in 5, So anyway, the guy that had been building our other equipment, the custom built swather, that was all part of that plan. The big ass round balers was part of that plan. And then I come across this Terragator and I said, what can we do with it? And he said, well, ship it up here, send it in your bale stacker. I'll start measuring. Let's see if we can build it. Well, we got it up there. It just didn't work. It was too tall. It was too big. The bales had to come too far up off the ground. It was going to be way too long. It wouldn't have turned good. And he said, man, I'm not going to build something that I don't like. But he said, I got another idea. I want to send you a drawing. He kind of drew it up, shortened it up. He said, we can take X number of feet or inches out of the frame, as short as we can get it, basically build you a pull tractor. And I just thought about it for a while. And I said, look, I want a big set of fenders on it. I want a hydraulic reservoir that's disconnected from everything else. All I want it to run is just the SCVs. Put simple switches in the cab, on, off, on, just something simple. And it's got a Cat engine in it. And that one actually had a torque boost, which is just kind of an off brand of an Allison back in the early days. It turned out we're actually going to convert it to an Allison, but that was the first one. And they built it, sent it down here, put it on a stacker. And it took a little bit to get used to. It's not a tractor. It's not like a 8R Deere, but when you figure out that sucker would run across the field and it's got 400 horse, it was a game changer. Well, my brother was the one running it, and he's like, man, I don't like shifting gears all day, but this thing's badass. He's like, I can shift gears in it. I love it, So through that, we kept on that process of what's next, what's next thing better. Well, the case rigs, the red ones, are Allison automatic. So we found another one on an auction, and he did the same thing. Took everything off of it, shortened it up, changed the hydraulic pump, put a set of fenders on it, and do all the stuff we needed to do to it, set it up the way we wanted it, deck it out with LED lights, and send it down here. And that one was the rig. I mean, when it came to stacking hay, you drove it like a car just with the throttle, put a big enough pump on it to run everything at an idle. He gained about 200 bales a day stacking.
Whoa.
And he said, the best part of the whole deal, he said, when I get done at the end of the day, I'm ready to go out and drink some beers with my buddies. If I'm running a John Deere or any other tractor, I hate my life. Like when I get done, I just want to punch somebody in the face. But he said, this rig's all right. So
that's one way to fix the problem.
No crap.
So we got to take a quick little break to take a drink of our alcohol for the day. We want to thank Busch Light again for their sponsorship, but I want to get back into a question right after this, but we've got something special here, Corey. What do we got?
So Flyover Whiskey out of Nebraska reached out to me, it was probably 2 months ago, and then I kind of forgot about it, and one day right before harvest, I got this big box in the mail. I'm like, what the heck is this? And I opened it up, and it was 6 bottles of whiskey with our logo on it, which is pretty cool. And so what they do is they will take corn or rye or whatever off your farm and make batches of whiskey for your farm and kind of make a little keepsake. If you wanted to, this was Grandpa's last harvest or,
sure,
whatever, and something to memorize the harvest and put it up on the shelf. So
I'm never going to throw these bottles away.
no, it's pretty cool. So
now let's see if the whiskey's any good.
let's see if it's any good. I mean, it is out of Nebraska, and we didn't send our own Iowa corn over there, so I'm a little skeptical.
If it's not any good, it's because of Nebraska corn.
Yeah.
TJ, that's what it is.
Oh, that's very mellow.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Not bad. I got a lot of caramel. You caramel?
I am getting a little caramel. No butterscotch.
No. For Nebraska corn, it's pretty good. It would be better with Iowa corn, but I don't mind it.
I'm trying to think of what I could even compare this to.
So we had 2 ice cubes in here and poured a little.
I know he told us that we should try it neat first.
Yeah, we'll have to do that after the show.
Yeah.
But I don't mind it. For actually just being whiskey, not considering it a bourbon, it's pretty good.
Yeah, because we've had some pretty harsh corn whiskey.
Yeah.
Mark Thomas sent us up a bottle of mellow yellow or yellow mellow corn, and whoo-wee, that was pretty
very
harsh.
Smooth. But thank you to Flyover Whiskey. If you guys need a great keepsake, or you're thinking of like maybe something for your customers or something like that, that'd be kind of cool.
Nice. Thank you so much. So, all right, back into this, TJ. You were talking about how it started with the stackers, and you said the same guy that had already been working on your swather and your baler. So I thought the Terragators were first.
No, Terragators actually came at the very end. They came at the tail end of the whole process.
Let's finish the Terragator side, because so far we've only gotten as far as the stackers, but now you have Terragators, 1 with PTOs and 2 with row crop tires on them.
Yeah. Well, as of right now, we don't have a tractor on the farm. Yep. So we only have 2 tractors, but they're currently, I'd just say, not usable. So we are fully Terragators at this point. The good Lord set up every end to where he said, you know what, if you're going to go this way, you're going to go fully this way. You know, like if you're going to make a footprint and make a stand, you're going to do it full force, not half-assed. So, I mean, that's just where we're at currently. So through that process, we had a couple of them. We used them on rakes. We used them on stackers. We didn't have a power takeoff. Well, we looked at hydraulic PTOs. I mean, we looked at every scenario possible and discovered a way that we could do it. Took us a little bit of footwork, and we actually figured out how we've got a direct drive power takeoff, you know, through them Terragators, so it's full power to them. You know, clutch on and off like a regular tractor, brake with a tractor. I mean, it's the same setup. We were just able to adapt it onto one of them Terragators. You got to build a lot, you know, but it's capable. I mean, that's one thing that the guy that does this, his name is Wayne Vogel, he in his shop. And I mean, he and I have a lot of the same personality, you know, no's not an option, you know, like no just makes you think harder, you know, so yeah. You just figure it out. You know, you just keep diving in it, and you know you can't go forward, so you figure out which way to turn and you keep going. And so we've ended up with power takeoff units. We needed a wide front end, so through the process of the Terragators, of course, there's this big round baler. Well, for this big round baler, you needed a really wide stance because we're chowing through this really massive windrow. So the only tractors that were really suitable to go out that wide to sustain the weight was a track tractor, which is fantastic, but we run down the road too much. Well, that most expensive John Deere tractor I've ever had in my life was an A360 RT, and we ended up spending more on it than we paid for it. So, you know, I said, I'm not going down this road either, you know, just bogey wheels and track issues and high wear, and it's just always something. So here we are on these Terragators, and Wayne said, well, I think I can make you a Terragator as wide as you want it. You know, the front end's simple. Like, we're going to build it out of 10-hole hubs out of a semi-trailer. So you got oil bath bearings, and you're going to have brakes on it. And I know how to build the kingpins because he builds vegetable harvesters. They build all them front ends themselves. And, you know, you're talking 25, 30-year-old machines and never had a kingpin bearing out of them. You know, mm-hmm. So he's like, we can do this. This isn't hard. So anyway, the hardest part was we actually widened out the rear axle. There's massive, like 2-inch thick wall pipe that extends the rear axle. We had the actual inner drive axles machined and fabricated. So instead of about a 30-inch long centerpiece drive axle, we've got almost a 6-foot long centerpiece drive axle, and everything bolts on. I mean, just build it from one point out, and when you get where you want to be, that's where you stop. But he's designed it, engineered it, and so now we've got this. It's probably, I think it's 8 foot on the inside of the tires, and it matches the wheelbase of the baler. So, the baler started before we had the Tarrigators, and then we went through some more massive changes when the Tarrigators came on the scene. The original big baler was supposed to be self-propelled, but we decided we better make it to where we could actually bale hay with it before we built a massive self-propelled machine. And that's all it's just been a progression. Every year's been different. Every time we go to the field is just the lead into the next step. And so right now where we're sitting today is we've got the fully customized Tarrigator with an 8-foot stance, 4-wheel machine, 4-wheel brakes. It's the baler is fully hydraulic, runs right off the Tarrigator. There's no drive shaft, no drive line, no gearbox. It's fully hydraulic. There's only 2 chains on the whole baler. It's fully hydraulic driven. There's no splices in the belts. All of the net wrap and the string is all hydraulic driven. I mean, it's a very simple system. It's not a cheap system, but it's robust. They're just made to take it. So it's been a very interesting progression. But as far as the Tarrigators go, the row crop ones came about because we're running shredders. Running a shredder is it's not really hard on the tractor, but you're running through standing corn stalks all day long. And I can't tell you how many hundreds of gallons of hydraulic oil we've bought for stupid sensors that get knocked off. The little test ports, if they're not covered up, you'll get a corn stalk jammed in that little test port underneath of the tractor and dump out everything out of the rear end. It's just those little things that you don't think about. And I said, look, build that Tarrigator, get all the air lines up out of the way. You build, shields across the front of the transmission. I said, man, you need to run over trees in this thing and drive out the other side. And so they did all that. They've got the round air filters. They got rid of the honeycomb air filters, which are a pile of crap, in my opinion. You go back to the old original, your pre-cleaners, you just get rid of a lot of the debris before it gets to the air filter. And, hey, we can blow that round air filter out, and your local Napa store has them for $80 or $100 instead of $300. It's just all the little things that you just don't think about until you're there and you're paying the bill. And we just went back to what I knew was feasible, what you knew you could get. They're all Cat engines. I mean, they are expensive. Like we built them for long term, and we didn't cut any corners. When he buys them, they are stripped completely down. They're painted from the ground up. All the air lines are new. All the brake componentry is new. We've replaced all the air conditioning components. I mean, anything on them that we've had trouble with, it gets put on new. And that's a healthy bill. I mean, it's not cheap. But when you're done, we've got a tractor that's 425 horsepower. It runs 45 miles an hour down the road. If they're a 4-wheel rig, they got 4-wheel air brakes. The transmission is its own oil. The rear end is its own oil. The hydraulics are its own oil. Everything's filtered separately. There is no DEF. There is no emissions. There's no particulate filters. I mean, there's just none of that stuff. We moved all the coolers out from in front of the radiators, so they're all high coolers on the back. You got your own hydraulic cooler. We put a big cooler for the transmission and the PTO. The only thing in the front when you service it is the air-to-air and the radiator. You open the front of it, you blow it out with an air hose, you pull the air filter out. Everything's easy to get to, fully serviceable, and you're back in the field.
I think he needs to send one of those up here to put on the grain cart.
Yeah. Have you seen that someone has one that's a grain cart?
What?
It's like a self-propelled. I saw a video of it. It's got a big cart on it.
This to me sounds like he said 45 mile an hour. I could get back to the combine really fast.
Be ramping some terraces and stuff.
Okay,
it's just been a huge it's just a big difference. Like, again, they're not as comfortable, like you give up a little of the creature comforts. They're a little more noisy in the cab. We struggle with the air conditioners a lot in the yellow ones, which we're trying to overcome. The system itself works fine, but just running a CAN bus system, like of all things, a freaking air conditioner is super simple, and they got to run it through the damn CAN bus system. It's like, are you kidding me? Like why make things so complicated? Like I'll get into a few more technical things, but like the CAN bus system, anything you run's got a module. So if you want to run headlights off of a CAN bus system, you're going to locate a module somewhere in your tractor. You're going to run a large power wire, 12, and a large negative wire to the module. Okay. Now you're going to turn around. You're going to run signal wires to it to where you can activate it. Then you got your CAN bus system that's communicating through it. So, it only takes 2 wires to turn a light on and off and a switch. And you've already got 4 wires in it.
Right.
And it's like, this is how we're designing stuff. Like the CAN bus system is nice. Like I've got the CAN bus system on our baler. But at the same time, it's like it does not have to be so stinking complicated. And we're just in an era, and it may never change. I'm probably barking up a tree that's never going to come back around. But, I mean, if it's that stinking complicated, why does it have to be like that? And the only answer I have to that is because they want the repair. And I think that's the truth. I think a lot of the stuff is being designed around repair bills for a generation of income. And we're not on the good end of that.
Right.
We're on the wrong end of that spectrum. So we just got to a point where I said, I'm out. I am so fed up with repair bills. I mean, you guys sitting right there, how many times do you hear, well, we've never had that problem?
Yeah,
all the time.
Yes.
How many times do we hear, well, we actually don't know what's wrong with it? Like how many hours are these techs sitting in a pickup on a laptop communicating with the higher ups on the repairs? And it's like, how much do we really know about this stuff in the field at this point in time?
Right.
Ours lately has just been throw parts at it. It might not be the right fix, but it's the parts they have in stock or the quickest one, and it ends up not being it, and you end up spending $4,000 or $5,000 over what it should.
Yeah. Yeah, right. They didn't take all the parts back off of it and refund you your money and take it off the bill.
I actually asked that.
Like,
we had exhaust issues on a machine, the grain cart last year, and I said the same thing. 2 trips out, 2 sets of parts. We shouldn't have to pay for any of that.
Yep.
Yeah. And my argument in that is if they were really truly standing behind that, they would change part of their business perspective, part of their business model. But that's untrue because all of the expense, I'm going to get into a warranty deal. Like, I absolutely hate warranty. I despise it. I wish it was never even a relevant thing that you could even purchase or even be offered, because you still pay the bill. Everybody that's buying new equipment still pays the bill. We think, oh my gosh, they're going to come out here on warranty and they're going to pay for it. No, actually they're not. It's a line item expense, just like your seed bill, your fertilizer bill, your chemical bill. They're a business and it's an expense, and how do they make it back? Well, I was going to say the next part of that is when you're financing the whole end of it, now you're financing your own repair bill. I mean, where does it stop?
Yeah.
Right.
Why does an X9 combine cost $1 million? Why does a cotton stripper cost $1 million? Like you can just go on and on and on. Like there's just no stopping it.
It's like it kind of reminds me of Edison Motors and
Yeah.
a little bit like Chase Barber, the planned obsolescence.
Correct.
And to sell you the machine,
Exactly.
to sell you the parts. And my brother worked at a parts counter at a dealership, and they had quotas, monthly quotas, and if they hit their monthly quotas, they got incentives and things like that. And it's like, isn't the goal to not sell parts? But no, it is the goal now.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, but now I'm intrigued about your baler because I didn't realize the baler came first. I mean, the swather probably came first, but your baler, okay. You are making a 9-foot in diameter round bale, correct?
Correct.
That's huge.
They're fairly large.
How many pounds is that?
Our goal was 5,000. The first bale that we kicked out in grass was 5,600, which there's no doubt in my mind, grass, you would be well on top of 5. Our goal was in super dry corn stalks, that fluffier material. We were shooting for 5,000. We're landing, I think we're probably, our better end of our bales are going to tip the 5,000, but an average, I don't know if I'm there yet. We're probably that 48, 4,900, but we're close. We're real close. And if you can, you get a really good windrow and the sides of the bale are full. And I mean, they're good bales. Like they're solid on the ends. They're slick sided. We got net wrap that we've just ran this week. That's edge to edge net wrap. So, I mean, it really cleans up the side of the bales. I mean, we're doing it, like I tell guys, rent it to win it. We're too far to turn back, so you just got to keep going and you keep improving. And it's been phenomenal. Like we have more than doubled the production of my goal when we started. I said, if I can just get to this point, which was a 3-minute bale that weighed 5,000 pounds, I said, I'd be happy. It's still worth it's worth the investment. And at current, we are kicking out a minute 30 to a minute and 45 second, 5,000 pound bales.
Wow. Holy crap. So I grew up with a Heston stacker is how we gathered our corn stalks for bedding, but I don't think those stacks weighed 5,000 pounds.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of material.
That's a lot of material. The trucking's a bit of an issue. It's not really an issue. It's just kind of it's the thing we got to overcome, which we got to plan for it. We're moving that direction. But, I've said all along that if the production is high enough and the cost, like for instance, on a half-mile sprinkler, we've been in some really good crop. And our highest, I think, is 477 9x9s off of a half of a half miler. We just have been baling them with square balers here the last few days, and it's 1,300 to 1,700 3x4 bales versus 470 round bales. There's just such a massive difference. One of my neighbors is helping us haul them off, and they pull out there and there's 450 bales in a field, and they're like, holy cow, man, there's a lot of hay there. When you drive down the road and you pull into one, there's 1,700 3x4s, and he goes, man, I see what you see. That's ridiculous.
Right.
I'm like, yeah. And you want to talk about compaction, I'm running over 60 feet. A regular baler's running over 30 feet. Mm-hmm. We can, even if we throw a semi in the field, guys come out of the cornfield with a grain cart that's got 1,000 bushel. Why is it any different than hauling, the equivalent in weight out in hay? Ain't no different. So we're just trying to get to the point where instead of making 120 trips out of a field with a stacker, why don't we take that down to say 50 or 60? Mm-hmm. Get rid of the traffic that's in the field. It's just part of a bigger picture plan that, a lot of people don't see or understand until you're in it or you see it. There's just such a huge difference
you're
in
running,
the direction we're trying.
You're running such a big baler, and like you said, if you can get the edges filled and a nicely shaped bale, I know that you go weave back and forth. I don't know how else to describe that. When I'm baling corn stalks, sometimes you go about a foot to the left and 2 feet to the right to try and make sure your baler's filling up evenly. Do you still have to do that with this large round baler?
You do to a certain, you still have to work at that a little bit, but it's probably not as hard as the little baler. And I'm telling you, this thing's got an appetite that it is a sight to be seen. That windrow can drag underneath of that Tarrigator 8 feet wide, and you can run 8 or 9 miles an hour. I mean, it is phenomenal what that thing will eat. So I say that to say, when you get a big enough windrow, like my dad taught me running a round baler, the first thing you got to do to build a good bale is get off the throttle. You get the baler idled back, don't turn the bale as fast, let the pickup push the material into the front of it, and it's going to automatically spread that material out and push it into the sides of the baler, and you're going to create a better bale. But everybody thinks, hey, let's wind the tractor up, get the bale spinning fast. You ain't doing anything but wearing it out. So you just back off the throttle, and you'll get twice as good a bale. So ours is all hydraulic drive. I can slow the rotation down to wherever we want it. You can idle a tractor back if you want to. We can speed the pickup up. We can slow the pickup down. It's all individually operated. So you play with that till you figure out, hey, this is what works the best, which is where we've landed. You don't have to adjust at every field, but I mean, you can shove that thing full enough in a 8-foot wide, 8-foot wide windrow that you start seeing it push in front of the pickup. And now you're building a bale of hay, and it'll be just as square, slick sided as, there's just, it is a good bale, but it's strategic. You got to kind of learn that. Not every bale's perfect. I mean, the rake boys sometimes have a hard time getting you a good windrow, but rake boy has a hard time raking for a 5x6 baler sometimes too. It's always the rake guy's fault. So,
sounds like a grain cart.
That's funny. So,
but it's phenomenal. Like it just, so the guys, we've had some catastrophes. We've had this year, we're running 2 machines. And on that note, so we put them in the field, we're getting them all set. As I mentioned before, it's on a CAN bus system. I've got the laptop, I've got the tool, I can do all that stuff myself. So we're setting them up, and the weather's not cooperating. So we're just running a little bit, and we finally get them dialed in and we're running. And the first good day that we had, where we just showed up to the field, did a quick service on them, and Will and I got after it and started baling hay. That day, we obliterated every square bale record I had set for 11 years.
Whoa.
In the first day. And that was with 2 machines.
Wow.
I mean, the production of it is just, it's phenomenal. I mean, we baled to the equivalent of those 2 round balers of 2,700 3x4s. And one of those balers didn't run for 5 hours because I had to take a guy to the airport. Now, we worked a long time. I mean, we earned it. It wasn't a 24-hour day, but it was damn sure the 18 or 20. But of that 5 hours, 1 baler did not run. And I got back to the field at midnight, and we walked across a half-miler, 470 some bales of just that field that night. We started at 5:30, and that whole day we laid out 563 bales between the 2 balers. So if you had added another 100 to it, you'd have been at 660, which would basically be the equivalent of 3,000 conventional bales with 2 machines.
Wow. So is that getting you more clients? Are people seeing that and wanting the larger bales, or is it still an issue to handle the large bale once it's made?
So the handling is not an issue at all. Everybody out here is handling cotton bales. Every loader at every feed yard is big enough to handle 2 of those bales. The handling part is, well, there was no issues with the handling. We actually own the tub grinder service ourselves. So for me, I don't care if it's round, square, rectangle, triangle, lopsided. I don't care. We're going to grind it. The grinder don't care what size it is. So I looked at it from start to finish. How can I be the most profitable from start to finish? How can I get it out of the field in the biggest package that makes the most sense, that is the most efficient? How can my tub grinders be the most efficient? It was a start to finish thought process. It wasn't we woke up one day and said, oh my gosh, we want to break a record and, build the biggest baler in the world. And, we didn't think about any of the pros and cons. Like, it wasn't that way. Like, I thought about this for years. The biggest obstacle in the whole thought process was, how do you get something that I can see in my mind? There's nothing to look at, to not copy off of, but to cheat from. There's a conventional round baler, but when you upscale something that size, you didn't copy much. I mean, it kind of become its own rig at a point in time. Nothing conventionally in the hay market is even applicable to the machine. Like, for instance, there is not a pickup in the market on any baler that will withstand that kind of windrow. Like, we had to learn that. Like, corn stalks are a very tough material to move, and we took the biggest robust pickup built, put it under that machine, and would destroy it in 300 bales. I mean, completely obliterate it. So we had to go back to the drawing board. Like, the whole pickup design is our own design. Like, we had to do it. Like, you just had to take every component and make it work. the drive system on the baler, some of the things I threw out there on TikTok. When we had a PTO driven, the largest CV joint offered in the ag sector would last about 15 bales.
Jeez.
Whoa.
Just you exceeded everything that was available. Like there was even the belts in it. I mean, the belts in it are custom made belts, to hold that much pressure. Like there was just nothing. Almost had to redesign everything. Like the concept of the round baler is still there. Everything operates the same, but nothing's built the same. We just had to learn all that. You just had to go at it one step at a time. And like I said, Wayne and I have the same attitude. You just can't take no for an answer. And when you're talking to one supplier and they say, hey, this doesn't exist, well, it may not exist in your department, so let's try another one. So you just keep going. Our belts are welded. I mean, we built our own belt welder to get rid of the splices. We figured out how to vulcanize the belts and weld them together, so there's no splice in them. Like we just eliminated every part that we seen was a problem. That's why there's no chains on it. That's why there's no splices in it. That's why the system runs string and net wrap at the same time. We designed the whole string system in the back because you got this 5,000 pound bale and you got this joker running a stacker that wants to run into it or shove it. Well, you run around baler and corn stalks. What happens to a bale as soon as it starts sliding on the ground?
Right.
It's no longer a round bale. It's a pile of corn stalks. So what are you going to do with this 5,000 pound ball of corn stalks that's sitting at the edge of some guy's field? So, well, I said, just from my own experience, you got to have string in it. If you wrap the string in with the net wrap, you can cut it clear to the string and it doesn't rip no more. So all those little things that just took years of my experience, and I just compiled them all them hours on a tractor with no radio. This is what I want. This is what I know. How do we get there? And then, Wayne and I talk. I mean, that guy, he's an amazing guy. And I mean, it's nothing for him and I to be on the phone at 11:30 at night. I'll be on a machine and we're building. We're answering questions, we're solving problems, and coming up with the next line. So, and then all the baler drive, all the hydraulics, it's expensive. It's not for everybody. And I'm not saying that I'm elite in that. I mean, it's just being factual. Like, it is not feasible in about 95% of the operations. It's just not. But at the same time, an X9 combine or a CS 690 cotton stripper is not feasible for all operations. So like in our hay industry, it's like, why do I get attacked in the hay industry for building something that fits a market, but yet a big combine, a 48 row planter, 2,000 bushel grain carts, why is everything for the row crop industry all right? But like in the hay industry, we step out of the mold and it's like, oh my gosh, you lost your mind.
That's a damn good point.
Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't realize you got attacked.
Oh yeah. Like it's been an interesting, like I got pretty thick skin, and I mean, I know the facts of what we've done. Like I said, I didn't wake up yesterday with this wild harebrained idea. Like we got all the facts to push what we're doing. So, people throw all these questions out and all their opinions, but like until you're here, you don't see it. And matter of fact, just right now, we've got some guys out of the shop in my shop. We had a catastrophic failure on a baler, and they're fixing it. So last night I took them to the field where we're running 3x4 balers, and they're brand new, man, $225,000 machines, and they're over there hammering out corn stalks behind these tarrigators, And, to walk in there and look at it, hey, it looks pretty impressive, and you got a big old baler, and it's dirty conditions, and, you're looking at it work and do its job, and you're thinking, wow, that's pretty cool. Well, it's super slow. Like, it just takes forever to get across the cornfield, and they battle their butts off. I mean, if it's not the knotters, it's the feeding. If it's not the tying and the feeding them, it's something's wrong with the baler. It's just all the time. So I said, well, you guys want to see the baler run? Because, two of them has never seen it run. There's 3 guys, and one of them's been here helping, get us through it. So I said, hey, let's go over here to the field, and we show it to them. I said, you want to see it run? They're like, well, hell yeah. Like we didn't come all the way to Texas from Michigan to stare at it. Like we've seen it in our own shop. I said, all right. So we get a guy on it with me, and the other 2 get in a pickup. And I run down and back in 45 minutes and we dump out like 22 bales. And we're just playing.
Yeah.
You know, like them square balers are over there working their butts off. And I showed up that morning, worked for about an hour and a half, did the turn rows and, you know, opened the field up, and the wind was blowing horribly. So I ended up, we come back after dark. I run 2 more rounds and I baled as much volume playing, just opening the field up and showing them guys, as one of my square balers did all day. I mean, it's such a huge difference when you're in them tough conditions. And, you know, we get done and them guys are like, holy cow, man, it all makes sense now. You know, like when they're here and you see it and you see the size of the feed yards and you see the number of cattle and you see the acres of farm ground. I mean, it's no different than Iowa, you know, and them states that got wide open, you know, huge cornfields. And, you know, so geographically we're not necessarily by ourselves, but we probably utilize more corn stalks for feed than a lot of areas. But nobody builds it. You know, nobody is in this area where we are, which I get. You know, like big manufacturers aren't going to build, you know, 3 or 4 balers for people. You know, like I get where they're coming from, but I get really upset when their dealerships and their salesmen sell a machine into my conditions in my area and me personally. And then the next thing you hear is, well, they're not designed for that.
Yeah.
Well, why are you selling it to me?
Yeah.
You know, like you could actually take these machines. We just had this argument fresh off the press, like the 3 main colors. You do not have to recreate the wheel. You know, you do not have to redesign a machine. You just need to improve what you got. You know, like spend $5,000 at the factory and save me 20. You know, it's like, it's not hard. There's bearings, there's parts, there's all this stuff that's available, and they can buy it cheaper than I can. And I'm like, why do you not do this? But they're selling parts. You know, they're selling machines later on. You know, like Wayne said, Wayne's quote, I put myself almost out of business. Not really. He's just being, you know, honest to the machines. He's building vegetable harvesters that are 30 years old. So he's like, I literally built myself out of a job because we don't build them to get them back.
Right.
Now they rebuild them. You know, they'll bring them back and go completely through them. But to me, that's feasible. You know, it's like, and I told him, I want this big round baler to last 100,000 bales. Big bales. You know, like you do the math on that on a square baler that's half wore out at 30,000. You put 1,000 hours on a square baler, that sucker's wore slap out. Like there ain't much left of it. And to me, that's pitiful.
So speaking of cost,
$250,000 for 1,000 hours, that's the best you got.
Yep. So speaking of cost, I mean, obviously, you know your numbers in and out, and you've been through the gamut of buying a tractor and buying a baler and not, you know, getting all the parts and the big bills. Do you have a number on what your tonnage costs? Or maybe you don't want to give that away, but like maybe, you know, is it X amount cheaper than you were, or percentage that you were cheaper before now?
So I'm probably going to have to not dodge that, but I'm going to have to give an explanation behind it, because the sole reason I can't give you an exact number is because there's so much R&D work. Like everybody wants to know what cost, right?
Yep.
Okay, I'll tell you some figures when it comes to just the baler. There's over $150,000 of hydraulic components on that baler.
Wow.
The belting alone I had to buy in a slab that was $85,000. I designed the program, paid for the program. Now I have rights to it, so the next ones are cheaper. That's $50,000. Mm-hmm. Like we've put a pile of money into the first one just to get yourself there. But the slab of belts built 4 balers. From now on, the program cost me $10,000 instead of $50,000. You know, and that's how the big manufacturers can produce these large machines at a lower cost. I will give manufacturers one thing. My hat is off to them for what they produce for the cost. There is no way you can one-off anything that's manufactured today for 3 to 4 times what they're selling it for. It's just impossible. The componentry is too much. The R&D is too much. So my hat's off to them, and I have a very, very, very high respect level for every manufacturer that's in the business that is creating machinery, because they are doing it the most cost effective possible, but they are not doing it to where it's the most productive for us, you know?
Right.
And a lot of that is because if the true factor was in it, we wouldn't buy it. You know, it'd just be too expensive. You know, you'd go the cheapest route, just like on Amazon. You know, you go buy something on Amazon, there's 10 things that's the exact same thing. Well, which one do you buy? You know, do you buy the most expensive or do you buy the cheapest? You know, now you're not going to buy the cheapest of everything. You know, if you're going to buy some tools and some things, you know, you're going to need and you kind of depend on it, you're probably going to be on the upper side of it, right? Yeah. So there's a little bit of that thought process as human nature that kind of sets that price. But to answer your question more directly, I don't have an exact price. I don't have an exact cost per ton at this point because we've put such a large investment into it. And keep in mind, we've done this times 2, not times 1.
Yeah.
Like, I've got enough faith in what we're doing to do it again. I also have enough faith in what we're doing that in 1 week of full production with 2 machines, we're already talking about a 3rd one.
Yep.
And I can build the 4th one for not a whole lot more than I can build a 3rd one.
Yep.
So what I can tell you is the production through machines that are designed and engineered to do the job is enough to spend 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 times the amount of money that we're spending conventionally in these environments.
Well, I commend you tremendously because clearly it wasn't working before, and the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And so no matter what it costs, you are blazing your own trail and taking the challenges on head on. And there's not very many people in the world, let alone this industry, that would do that anymore.
One, even fight back on part costs. Just 2, starting to blaze your own trail to figure out a way to do it yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's pretty cool.
And it ain't been easy. I tell everybody, like, when you jump out of that boat and start swimming upstream, it's a pretty tough road. You know, like, everybody's watching. I mean, they're all standing on the shore cheering you on, but there sure as hell ain't nobody jumping in helping you push.
Yeah.
Like, it's just that way. You know, you're just kind of on your own, and you got a select group that, you know, they're there behind you, but somebody's still got to pay the bill. And probably the hardest part is financially is operating. Like, we're still sustaining our business, and you're R&D in the largest equipment that's ever been built in our industry, and I'm cash flowing it on my own.
Right.
Like, that's pretty tough. But up until this year, you know, we really set ourselves up conventionally much different than where we were. And I did that to where I could push the money that we were generating in towards these projects. So what I mean by that is we were buying a lot of used equipment and we're running it for a period of time, and we can work on stuff, obviously, so we can support ourselves. And then I sell it for basically the same money you give for it.
Right.
And when you're in an inflating economy, I'm actually on an appreciation of our highest usage machines instead of a depreciation.
Yep.
So I'm saving this $3.5 million that cost us in 7 years. And that's why we're pushing towards these other machines. But, you know, it's not easy. You know, we spend a lot of time in the shop, but you're willing to do it when you can see the light for something else.
Right.
You know, and I tell a lot of people, like, if I didn't have that big swather and interrogators and a big baler ahead of us, I probably wouldn't be here. I would probably be doing something a whole lot easier, because we all know there's a whole lot easier ways to make money and survive other than in agriculture right now.
No, that's cool. And I'm glad that we get to help tell your story a little bit. If listeners want to go see this big baler and these interrogators in action, what is your TikTok handle again so they can go out and find you?
It's at Hay4Days. That's Hay, Hay, number 4, and then days. And we really started it just on a Facebook page, Born to Farm. Most of that stuff, you know, the very first original video of that baler, of the very first bale we put out, is actually on YouTube. You know, and that being said, you know, keep in mind, we're only 3 seasons in this. This is only the 3rd season that this machine's even been running. And at the end of the 2nd season, we built the 2nd one. And it's taken us 5 years, which may, you know, 5 years is a while, but you chop that in half, because your season 60 to 90 days for corn stalks, which we we've actually ran the baler later in the seasons because we're not so busy. But, we've accomplished this in 5 years. So why do we struggle so much with conventional equipment when we've done it for 40 or 50?
Yep. No.
Think of the things that we're dealing with on a daily basis and ask yourself why. Why is this the best we've got? Are these machines phenomenal in technology? You bet. But if they're so phenomenal, why are we still dealing with some of the things we're dealing with? Like one thing that didn't exist 20 years ago was it was a sensor. You realize that 20 years ago, that terminology in the mechanic world and fixing machinery didn't even exist. Mm-hmm. But now it's like the number one thing was a sensor.
Right.
Well, how about we spend millions of dollars improving sensors?
Yeah. Yep.
Or ways around them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been enlightening. It's not the direction I think we thought the conversation was going to go to begin with, but I'm glad that it went there to share your perspective, to share your ambition, to creativity and ingenuity to solve a problem in agriculture. We preach all the time. Farm for Profit podcast. We're here to help expose our listeners to things that might make their farm a little bit more profit. So, TJ, I know it's busy season for you. I'm glad that the weather cooperated with us on a whim to get you to sit down with us for more than an hour. I'm hope that we get to have more conversations in the future, but for now, I think this was a good one.
Yeah, I know I got some friends that are really going to eat this one up. Some custom baler guys, and yeah, it'll be pretty cool. So,
no, this has been cool.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on and reaching out, and we're just. I tell people, like, I don't have anything to prove to anybody, but there's a lot of people watching, and there's a lot of people that just need inspiration to just a little bit of hope that something could be better, just something to wake up the next day, to have enough courage and ambition to give it another day,
Yep.
And I'm no different, like some days that you really got to dig pretty deep to find the ambition to make it another day.
Yep.
But I think sometimes that, like, we all just have to see somebody succeed. And I'm not saying I'm succeeding, but you just got to see somebody that gives you a little more drive, So I invite anybody to come out. Like, I don't tell anybody to go away. I'm I've been accused of being a kind of a jerk and arrogant, but that's really about as far from me as you could get. So If anybody's in the Texas Panhandle, hey, this stuff, it's as much open to the public sitting alongside the road as it is my place. Just come and see it.
Yeah, we're going to have to make a trip to Texas.
Pictures don't do it justice.
Definitely.
We'll have to get down there, and if we do make that plan this winter or maybe even next summer, I don't know if I want to be in Texas during the summer.
Well,
either way, when we get a trip down, you'll definitely be one of those on our list. But thanks again, TJ. We appreciate you hanging out with us. And Corey, for the listeners,
say crack a bush light. Also check out Flyover Whiskey. You deserve it.